Pain is something we all experience, but for millions of people, it's this constant, confusing, and honestly really isolating reality. Today, we're going to dive into the incredible new science that's changing everything we thought we knew about chronic pain. And it's a story of hope, because it all starts with a simple, powerful idea. You have way more control than you think. And her story? Well, it's where the journey begins for so many people. Can you imagine? Bess suffered from these awful migraines for 2 whole decades. After she had kids, they came back with a vengeance, to the point where she was in pain every single day. Her story just perfectly captures that misery and confusion that so many people feel when the pain just will not go away, no matter what they do. Okay, so let's get right into it, because this is the core question, right? We all tend to think of pain as a simple signal from an injury. You break a bone, you get a cut, you touch something hot. But here's the thing. If it was really that simple, then why does pain sometimes stick around long after an injury is healed? Or why do two people get the exact same surgery and one feels way more pain than the other? So, to really get a handle on the new science, we've got to first look at why the old way of thinking just doesn't quite cut it. For the longest time, the medical world treated pain like a straightforward puzzle. Find the physical problem, slap on a fix like a drug or a surgery, and boom, the pain should be gone. But as I'm sure countless people listening can tell you, it is rarely ever that simple. Okay, check this out, because this story really gets to the heart of the mystery. You've got a neurosurgeon who does two basically identical back surgeries on two women, both named Joanna, on the same day. The first Joanna, the next day, she's up, smiling, even wearing lipstick, ready to go home. The second Joanna, she's in a dark room, curled up in agony, hooked up to a morphine drip. Think about that. The exact same surgery, but two totally different worlds of pain. It perfectly shows a central truth. Pain is deeply, deeply personal. So what's the deal? Why does this old approach fail so many people? Well, a major pain task force figured out a few key reasons, and they all point to a system that's just too simplistic, from relying way too much on drugs and procedures to a business model that kind of treats patients like they're just passengers, instead of active drivers in their own healing. All right, this is it. This is the moment, the scientific revelation that flips this whole conversation on its head. This is where we stop thinking about pain as something that just happens to us and start seeing it as something our body actively does. Get ready for this, because it's a game changer. Those signals from an injury, the little electrical zaps from a cut or a burn, they aren't actually pain. They're just warning signals. Your brain gets those warnings, and in a split second, it analyzes them based on your memories, your emotions, your whole life context, and then it decides whether or not to create the experience of pain. It's the brain's decision, an output, not just a simple input. So how on earth is that possible? Well, the secret sauce here is something called neuroplasticity. And the best way to think about it is like this. Imagine your brain's neural pathways are like hiking trails in a forest. The more you use the trail, the wider and more defined it gets, right? Your brain is constantly building these trails based on your experiences. And just like it can learn to play the piano, it can also learn pain, creating this super well-worn pain path that gets easier and easier to trigger over time. And listen, the proof for this is all around us. It's wild when you start looking for it. I mean, take phantom limb pain. Up to 80% of people who've had an amputation feel intense, real pain in a limb that is literally not there anymore. It's the brain making its best guess about danger signals. A guess that, as you can see, isn't always tied to what's physically happening in the body. Okay, so this is where the story gets really hopeful. Because if your brain can learn pain through neuroplasticity, guess what? That very same ability means it can also unlearn it. And that right there is the key to taking a proactive role in your own pain story. One of the most powerful first steps is just changing how you think about your pain. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has a fantastic guide on this. For example, you might have an unhelpful thought, what they call catastrophizing, like, my pain is so bad I can't do anything today. The helpful reframe is simple. Even when my pain is bad, there are still some things I can do. Now, this isn't just about thinking positive. It's about actively training your brain to break that vicious cycle where your thoughts actually make the pain signal stronger. All right, let's talk about a huge myth that so many of us grew up with. For decades, we were told to use RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation, for injuries. But it turns out new evidence shows this might actually slow down healing because it reduces the inflammation your body needs to repair itself. The new thinking, it's all about MEAT, movement, exercise, analgesia, and treatment. The bottom line here, get this, movement is often the best medicine. Here's a really cool technique you can try. It's called analytical meditation. Let's walk through it. First, you just isolate the problem, the pain. Then you actually visualize it like it's floating in a bubble right in front of you. By doing this, you can start to examine it more objectively without all the emotion attached to it. And when you do that, sometimes the solution or a path forward just becomes clearer. So let's put together our new Pain Smart toolbox, shall we? And these aren't quick fixes. They're a whole collection of strategies you can use to build a more resilient, pain-smart life. It's really about creating a lifestyle that supports both your brain and your body and managing, and even preventing pain. See, a truly pain-smart life isn't about just one thing. It's about all these different pieces working together, from the physical stuff like moving your body, eating well, and getting good sleep, to your mental and social health. For instance, cultivate connection is huge. Feeling socially isolated can actually light up the exact same regions in your brain as physical pain. It's all connected. But being pain smart also means we have to be willing to dig deeper, to look for the root causes that might not be so obvious. I mean, just look at this staggering statistic from the CDC. It points to a hidden epidemic. Physical trauma, especially repeated head injuries from something like intimate partner violence, is a massive and often hidden cause of chronic pain and concussions. It's just a stark reminder that if doctors aren't asking the right questions, they might never find the real source of the problem. And all of this, everything we've talked about, it all leads to maybe the most important point of all. Chronic pain can feel like it's completely taking over your life, like it's stealing your identity. But the science of the brain shows us that you can fight back. You can reclaim who you are. This quote, wow. It comes from a man who, after suffering from a gangrenous leg, had to make an impossible choice, to have it amputated. He was terrified he was losing a part of himself. But months later, he came back to the clinic totally pain-free, joking around and even twirling his daughter in the exam room. He didn't lose himself, he got his life back. It's just such a powerful reminder that recovery is possible, even when things seem dire. So how do you actually do that? How do you reclaim your story? Well, this is a really helpful way to think about it. You can look at your identity in these 4 areas: who you are to yourself, in your relationships, in your actions, and in your community. Chronic pain can make every single one of those areas feel smaller. The key is to actively push back, to intentionally do things that reaffirm who you are in each of those spaces. And if you want an amazing, real-world example of someone turning their pain into purpose, look no further. After struggling with trigeminal neuralgia, which is one of the most painful conditions known to medicine, Amy Tomasolo and her husband started a comedy fundraiser. It's called Laugh Your Face Off, and it's raised millions for facial pain research. She took back control of her story by building a community and creating something meaningful out of her struggle. And that really brings us full circle to the most hopeful idea of all. Your brain created your pain story based on its past experiences, its old predictions. But because of neuroplasticity, it has the incredible power to write a new one. With these tools and this new understanding, you can be the lead author of that story. The pen is literally in your hand. So the real question is, what's the next chapter going to be?